What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today with another Tale of the Tape episode. We are talking about Isaiah Spiller, running back from Texas A&M in this video. If you guys haven't seen any of these videos yet, if this is the first one that you are watching, we have plenty of other prospect breakdowns, Tale of the Tapes on the channel already. Treylon Burks, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, etc. If you want to go back and check those out, there's a playlist under our channel called Tale of the Tape where you can watch all of those. But basically, what you're going to be finding in this video is everything that you need to know to help prepare you to diagnose Isaiah Spiller when it comes to, your rookie drafts in dynasty leagues this spring, from background information on the player to, the 6 fundamental traits of fantasy running backs, other traits that the running back position needs, athleticism, comparisons, grades, scheme fits, all that good stuff will be covered in this video today. Check out the Patreon as well if you want to support the channel. Patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. The $10 tier will get you a ton of benefits, including first dibs on dynasty decisions. It will also get you access to our dynasty rankings manifesto, which has, 1 quarterback, super flex, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end rankings, as well as bucketed age rankings by tier. And all of that good stuff will be in there, as well as some databases on these prospects so you can do some of your own research as well. My first batch of rookie rankings will be dropping later this month. That will be available to Patreons as well. So if you're interested in that, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Like the video down below if you enjoy. Comment any of your thoughts down below as well. Let me know what you think of Isaiah Spiller after the video is over. Of course, make sure you listen to what I have to say before you make any comments. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Now let's hit the intro. All right, so Isaiah Spiller, running back from the Texas A&M Aggies. This is his Tale of the Tape. You guys can see it on the screen right now. Isaiah Spiller, 20.4 years old, will be only 21 when he takes his first snaps in the NFL. 6'1", 215 to 225. Again, we will get official measurements about 2 weeks from now in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. As of right now, we're kind of treating him as a 215 to 225 pounder, depending on what he weighs in at. But basic information, background information on Isaiah Spiller. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of Texas, went to Texas A&M, 9th ranked running back in the 2019 recruiting class, 20.4 years old. So very, very young, will only be 22 when he starts his sophomore season in the NFL, which is what we saw from a guy like Cam Akers coming into this year. He was very, very young, and that was a big drawing, deciding factor of him in Dynasty. And when we talk about, value accumulation, which is what we talk about a lot on this channel, if Isaiah Spiller comes out and has a great rookie year, he could really shoot up the draft boards in Dynasty leagues very, very easily, similar to what we've seen from a guy like Javonte Williams this year. Anyways, 3 seasons as a starter at Texas A&M, 946 rushing yards and 29 catches as a freshman, true freshman, at 18 years old, 2 straight seasons of 1,000 yards following that, despite never seeing more than 188 carries in a single season. Devon Achane was his backfield mate in 2020. In 2021, he's going to be a good prospect next year, so we do have some legit NFL competition in the backfield with Isaiah Spiller. If we think of Javonte Williams' situation last year, where he was competing with Michael Carter, who was obviously a legit NFL running back in his own right, that's kind of the situation we're looking at with Spiller. So we're not talking about a workhorse running back like Breece Hall, like, some of the guys we've seen in years past, but nonetheless, a guy that was productive despite having some good backfield competition, as well as a running quarterback for his first 2 seasons with Kellen Mond. So the 6 fundamental traits of elite fantasy running backs. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, if this is the first video that you're watching, these 6 fundamental traits translate directly to fantasy points, to playing time, to, all the stuff that we care about as fantasy players, as dynasty players. So the first category is elusiveness, making people miss. How do you, avoid tackles in the NFL? Isaiah Spiller on film is just so twitchy. It's the easiest way to describe him. I know it's a classic buzzword of NFL draft scouts, is that he's so twitchy, but it's like he's running on his tippy toes out there. That's what it really looks like when you watch Isaiah Spiller run the ball. Every play he approaches the line of scrimmage, if he's running from shotgun or something and he's starting from, not a running start, he sorts through running lanes with quick footwork, finds holes quickly. He's very, very good. He's very, very elusive, either at the point of attack, in the second level, third level, whatever you want him to do. Making people miss is very, very natural for Isaiah Spiller. In the open field, he sets up defenders very, very effortlessly. He's able to, combo his moves together. If he jukes one guy, he's able to spin off that. He's able to sort through running lanes with quick footwork and find holes quickly. In the open field, like I said, he sets up moves effortlessly. His agility is really the foundation of his entire, package as a running back. The reason he's so good is because he's so agile. The metrics back this up as well. 4th highest PFF elusiveness rating of 120.0, second only to Kenneth Walker, who I talked about last week, of running backs with 200 plus attempts. 3rd highest tackles avoided per attempt in the class as well. 33% of the time Isaiah Spiller was touching the ball, he was avoiding a tackle. Again, behind only Kenneth Walker among running backs with 200 plus attempts. Now, once you make people miss, are you able to break contact as well? And this is kind of what I talked about with Breece Hall. But the best running backs in the NFL can do this from both avenues, right? When we talk about Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, all these guys that are very, very good fantasy assets or have been very, very good fantasy assets in the past, these guys were able to break tackles with both elusiveness, making people miss, as well as their physicality, toughness, contact balance, being able to deal with heavy contact and still keep chugging along. Of the backs in this class, none do it better than Spiller in these first two categories when you combine them together. So a running back that can make people miss and break contact, Isaiah Spiller, in my opinion, is the best in this class. Open field contact is not a problem for him at all. He's routinely able to break contact, arm tackles, and make defenders pay for going low on him or taking bad angles with vicious physicality. Now watch this fucking shit that he does to this Florida defensive back. And I don't even know if this is a defensive back or a linebacker, but he puts this guy on his ass. And Isaiah Spiller will do that to you. He's very, very physical. And again, the numbers back it up. He's 3.63 yards after contact, ranks 5th in this class. And the impressive thing about that, and similar to what I said for a home run hitter like Kenneth Walker, is that Kenneth Walker's yards after contact per attempt was kind of aided by the fact that he's a home run hitting running back. So he'll get tackled in the backfield, he'll break the tackle, and he'll run off a 60-yard touchdown. But Isaiah Spiller doesn't necessarily have that skill set. So the fact that he ranks highly in yards after contact per attempt, and he's not a home run hitter, he's not padding his stats on big runs where he's breaking some contact initially and then running for a huge play. That is something that is very encouraging to see on a play in and play out basis. He is the best running back in this class at handling contact that I have seen so far. Him and Tyler Algier from BYU are very, very good in this avenue. And it's very encouraging because this definitely translates to fantasy production. The more you can create on your own, the better you're going to be for fantasy. The less your offense needs to be good and your quarterback play needs to be good and your offensive line needs to be good. The better you are on your own as a running back, the better your fantasy outlook can be. So number 3 is receiving ability. Receiving ability of the big 3 running backs, in my opinion, that everybody knows about, the Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and Isaiah Spiller tier that most people have as their top 3 running backs in this class. I think Isaiah Spiller is the best receiver of these guys pretty comfortably. He could use some work on technique. He'll body catch some passes here and there. But the encouraging thing for Isaiah Spiller is that he's very sudden. He's very fluent running routes. And that is the difference between him and Breece Hall, who's also a capable receiver, but he had a much more diverse route tree than Breece Hall. And I think he runs routes a lot more urgently, a lot better, and a lot more fluently than what Breece Hall can do. And once we see the combine drills in Indianapolis, we're probably going to notice that Isaiah Spiller looks a little bit more equipped in the receiving game than Breece Hall does. He runs those Texas routes. He runs, when he's out of the backfield, he'll run wheel routes and, some deeper stuff that you're not seeing from a guy like Breece Hall, who has a negative average depth of target. Isaiah Spiller's average depth of target ranks 4th in this class. Only 2 guys like Kyron Williams and Rachaad White, who are obviously better receiving backs than Isaiah Spiller, but that's pretty much all they bring to the table. His PFF receiving grade of 79.0, good for 8th in the class as well. And again, this guy gives you a lot on the ground also. So it's not like he's just a receiving back, because he ranks highly among receiving backs, even though he is a 3-down guy. And his college target share, when we talk about the numbers and on paper, how does he stack up as a receiver? I talked about this as the biggest problem for Kenneth Walker on Friday. His college target share, Isaiah Spiller's of 9.7%, ranks 75th percentile among Player Profiler's database. 3 straight seasons of 20-plus receptions in college, 29 receptions as a true freshman 18-year-old. He is definitely among the best receiving backs in this class. He's up there with Kyron Williams. He's up there with Rachaad White. And again, along with being much better than those guys on the ground as well. So those first 3 traits, again, these are the fundamentals of playing running back in the NFL, the fundamentals of being very good in the NFL as a fantasy running back. And Isaiah Spiller checks every box in spades. Now, number 4, he doesn't check as well as a guy like Breece Hall. Now, he only scored 0.74 touchdowns per game over the course of his college career, which is definitely worse than Breece Hall. It's definitely worse than Kenneth Walker as well. But the film tells the story in this area of the field. When you watch this guy play, and you'll see some clips right now, he is able to get skinny. He is able to break initial contact and use those elusiveness and contact balance traits that I talked about already inside the red zone. And he has a nose for the end zone. His lack of touchdown production really has to do with his workload and the fact that he was in a committee, right? He doesn't have, the high-end touchdown numbers of a guy like Breece Hall, who currently holds the NCAA record for consecutive games with a rushing touchdown. He doesn't have that because he has Devin Archain in his backfield. He had a mobile quarterback in Kellen Mond who was rushing balls into the end zone. Devon Archain, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but Devon Archain is what I'm going to go with, had 120 more touches than anybody in Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker's backfield. So you're competing with a legitimate NFL caliber running back. So is low tread on the tires a strength for Isaiah Spiller? Is it something that we're excited about, that he doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires? Or does it question his ability to carry a full workload? That is something that we have to sort through. We have this discussion usually about one or two running backs every year. Last year was Javonte Williams. He never handled the full workload in college. Is that a positive? Is that a negative? I tend to count it as both. Number one, he doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires, which is a strength. Number two, we have questions about his ability to handle a workload. So I count it as kind of both things. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. But in terms of his ability to score the football, which obviously matters for fantasy because scoring touchdowns is the easiest way to fantasy points, he has this ability in the NFL. Once he gets there, hopefully he has a backfield to himself and he doesn't have to compete with a high level, other running back in his backfield. If he can secure a goal line role for an NFL team and he's got the size to do so, I think he's going to be great in that role. Now we talk about pass protection, and I'll keep this one brief. He's very stout. He's very physical in protection. Technically, he'll need some refinement, but that'll come with NFL coaching. Sometimes he'll misdiagnose blitzes here and there. But in my opinion, of these top three guys, he is clearly the best in this area. Among Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall. This is big to me because when he gets both facets of third down, because he's a great receiver and because he's good in pass protection, that is very encouraging to see in the NFL, because we've seen from guys like DeAndre Swift, from the positive side of things, that getting that 2-minute drill work, getting that long down and distance work can help increase your receiving potential at the next level. And we've seen from guys like Antonio Gibson, who played receiver in college, so he's very good at that role. But not being able to pass protect is going to get you taken off the field in favor of veteran running backs like J.D. McKissic, who can pass protect. So the fact that Spiller can do both is very encouraging to see, given the fact that we want this guy to be on the field on all three downs. Number 6, the final fundamental trait for running backs. Again, this one's not usually required because we've seen plenty of running backs like Le'Veon Bell, who have been productive in fantasy and very, very productive in fantasy, not have this ability. But your ability to score home runs, break away off big runs as well, is something that can contribute big time to fantasy production. I know all of us playing fantasy have said, the statement, oh, if Jonathan Taylor just breaks off an 80-yard touchdown here, then I'll win my matchup. That is what we want from our fantasy running backs if we can help it. And I think he's solid in this category, but he's not the home run threat that a guy like Kenneth Walker is. He's not the home run threat that a guy like Travis Etienne was last year, something like that. His speed will definitely be interesting. According to 24/7 Sports, Isaiah Spiller ran a 4.58 coming out of high school. Now, again, he was 17, 18 years old. I think he's a touch faster than that now. Probably low 4.5s is what I'm expecting him to run 2 weeks from now in Indianapolis. But if he runs a 4.65 or a 4.63 or something like that, that might be a concern for his top level speed. Although I don't think he's going to run that slow. I do think he's probably got, high 4.4, low 4.5s in his range of outcomes. The other aspect of home run ability, he does hit in spades. It's just creating breakaway runs in general, right? You don't need to create 70-yard touchdowns every time you break away from the defense. But if you can consistently gain 10, 20, 30-yard gains as a running back, that contributes to us in fantasy. And that's what we love, right? So breakaway run percentage in this class, Isaiah Spiller ranks 3rd in the class at creating runs of 10 plus yards, nearly 9% of his runs going for 10 plus yards, like I said, which is what we want. We don't need every running back to house 60-yarders like Jonathan Taylor, but you got to be able to create some kind of explosive plays if you want to have a high ceiling in fantasy. Now, the subjective traits, so again, this is anything that can't be quantified. So for running backs, that would be, when we look at their vision and their patience, and their football IQ, their toughness, and, their route running and stuff. These things aren't actually quantifiable. We can't cross-reference them to metrics to tell them whether our eyes are lying to us or not. This is, at the mercy of whoever's watching the film. From my perspective, as somebody who watched 5 games of Isaiah Spiller, his subjective traits are going to be overanalyzed. And the big complaints with him that I've seen from other analysts and people that don't like Isaiah Spiller is that Breece Hall is much better at the subjective traits than he is. He has better patience. He has better vision. But I do think Spiller is more than adequate in these areas. He's very good at running patiently, especially out of shotgun, as I mentioned already. He's also very tough. He's very physical, which you absolutely love to see from a running back. And I think he laps Breece Hall in this area. I don't even think it's close how much more physical he is than Breece Hall. The only gripe that I have about Isaiah Spiller when it comes to his subjective traits is the fact that he can be over creative in the backfield. He can be indecisive. Sometimes he needs to know when to hold them and when to fold them. When something's not there, just stick your head down and get 3 yards instead of losing 1 yard, which is going to happen from time to time, especially when you've been, the 4-star recruit, 9th running back in your class, been the best player on your high school team and on your college team as well. Sometimes you get that superhero complex. I've seen a lot of Miles Sanders comps because of this ability that Isaiah Spiller will show sometimes, but I think it's a little overblown. Like I said, it's something that can be taught at the next level. NFL running back coaches will tell you get what's there if you don't see anything opening up, but good running backs know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I think a guy like Christian McCaffrey is a good example. That guy like Dalvin Cook knows when to hold them and when to fold them. And that's what you want to see out of your running backs. Now, moving on from the traits aspect of this, talking about athleticism, as I already kind of mentioned, he ran a 4.58 coming out of high school. Not the fastest running back in the world, but he should have adequate speed to be an RB1 type in the NFL. Spiller also short shuttled 4.21 seconds, which was 65th percentile. And I think agility-wise, I want to see him be in the 80th percentile. I think agility is his best trait. And if it is in fact his best trait and the reason why he's so good in college, I need to see him be very good at the combine in the agility drills, which is, it sounds pretty straightforward. If your calling card and your hallmark is your ability to make people miss and have great footwork, then you need to put up great agility scores, which is how we want to be measuring these prospects. How do they win? And do the testing numbers kind of match that? And if he can accomplish those things, don't run a 4.65 and, put up good agilities, I'm very comfortable drafting him in the top 6 picks overall of rookie drafts and Superflex, one quarterback, whatever the case is. Now, when we talk about his final grades, I graded Isaiah Spiller as an 895 out of 1,100. Now, if you guys were watching the wide receiver videos, that is lower than I graded Drake London. It's lower than I graded Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson, meaning I would take Isaiah Spiller after these players. I don't care that he plays running back. I don't care that it's a more important position in fantasy. He is a less talented player than those wide receivers. Therefore, I will draft them higher. And he is an early second-round talent according to my grading system. He is my RB1 in the class. So he's my highest graded running back. But the important thing to note is that he would have been my RB4 last year. He would have been behind Etienne, Najee Harris, and Javonte Williams. I had higher grades on all 3 of those running backs. And he's my RB1 over Breece Hall for the main, other running back one that most people are going to have is because he's better through contact than Breece Hall. He's more physical and he's a better receiver than Breece Hall. So that is why I think he's better. He's also he's definitely bigger and a better receiver, a much better receiver than Kenneth Walker, which is why I think he's better than him as well. And when we talk about his biggest strengths, like I talked about kind of already through the video, he's elusive, great footwork, great agility, tough, physical, contact balance, receiving. His pass protection's adequate. He's patient behind the line of scrimmage. He's only 20 years old, 20.4 years old. He's a good athlete, and all that stuff kind of contributes to why he's my RB1. And in terms of his weaknesses, he's a little over creative at times. He's not the most decisive running back I've ever seen. He didn't produce at an elite level, but he did produce nonetheless. He was in a split backfield, and he is a little bit raw, but he is young. So that is kind of the overview on Isaiah Spiller. In terms of pro comparisons, my comparison for him is J.K. Dobbins. Now, going back to the 2020 class, J.K. Dobbins was my RB2 in that class, and I had a first-round grade on J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a worse version coming out of college than what J.K. Dobbins was coming out of Ohio State. When you look at the traits that both of those players had, tough, elusive, good contact balance, good fundamentals, good receiving ability, good in pass protection, all of those traits are evident in both players as prospects, but Dobbins was a better athlete and he produced at a higher level. So that is why I favor J.K. Dobbins in terms of the comparison and why my grade was higher on Dobbins than Spiller. But I do see a lot of similarities in their game. Their frames are a little bit off because Dobbins is a bit shorter than Spiller. But in terms of their compactness, how they play the game, I do see a lot of similarities. Best fits, scheme or team, again, whatever team that he goes to, as long as he gets a big workload, he should be fine for fantasy. I think the Miami Dolphins make a ton of sense with a wide zone type of scheme coming in from San Francisco. I think he'd be a perfect fit for that offense. If you want to use a Myles Gaskin to spare him a little bit, that makes a little bit of sense. Arizona would be awesome if James Conner moves on in free agency, and even somewhere where he can just find any good workload, whether it's Tampa Bay if Leonard Fournette is gone, Atlanta if they want to replace and upgrade from Mike Davis. So that is Isaiah Spiller. Again, let me know what you guys think of him in the comment section down below. Is he your RB1? Is he your RB2? Why do you think Breece Hall is better? If you do, because I'm sure a lot of you guys love Breece Hall and think he's a better prospect than Isaiah Spiller. Like I said, I think Isaiah Spiller is the better prospect. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. If this is the first video you're checking out, hit the subscribe button, totally free to do so. Check out the Patreon if you're interested in supporting us as well. Patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Peace out, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.